Welcome to NextGen Timber, where massive trees, roaring saws, overloaded timber trucks, advanced forestry machines, and raw mechanical force collide in the hardest working environments on Earth. After that, the tree turns into a professional saw trap. Blade after blade gets locked deep inside the massive trunk, almost like the wood is refusing to let the job continue. This is what happens when hidden pressure inside the tree is stronger than expected. The saws may have horsepower, sharp chains, and experienced hands behind them, but the trunk still controls the compression. Once the wood pinches down, raw cutting power is no longer enough. The operator has to read the pressure, reset the approach, and avoid forcing the machine into a worse situation. Next, the Rayco RT120 shows what modern vegetation management really looks like. With around 120 horsepower and a strong hydraulic system, this machine is far more than a simple brush cutter. It turns dense growth into controlled mulch with speed and precision. Thick vegetation, rough ground, and tangled material get processed into a clean working surface, showing how forestry technology is changing the way land is cleared, managed, and prepared for future work. This is not old-school clearing with endless manual labor. This is controlled mechanical land management. A near miss follows when a falling tree almost reaches a car. That moment explains exactly why vehicles should never be parked near active felling zones. Then the Multitech 2040XP2 works like a compact industrial production line. Once that 6.0-inch circular saw starts running, the entire workflow speeds up. Logs move through the system, the blade keeps cutting, and the machine maintains a steady rhythm like it is devouring timber without hesitation. This is the kind of equipment that turns repetitive wood processing into controlled production. Fast feeding, clean cutting, and constant output are exactly what modern timber operations are built around. On the slippery slope, the log truck cannot simply fight the road. It has to move with the surface, not against it. That is where driver judgment becomes more important than engine power. One wrong correction, one panic reaction, or one poor steering input can send the entire load out of control. A truck carrying timber is not just a vehicle. It is a moving mass of weight and momentum. And once that load starts sliding, stopping it becomes a serious problem. But of course, not every crew makes the situation safer. Some people seem to have a talent for adding risk exactly when the job is already dangerous enough. One bad decision, one wrong movement, or one careless position around falling timber can turn a controlled operation into something far more serious. In forestry, the margin for error is already thin. Adding unnecessary risk is just asking the forest to punish you. Then a truck that should have continued down the route ends up taking an unwanted rest in the forest. Timber roads do not forgive bad traction, weak judgment, or unlucky timing. Once a heavy truck leaves the line, getting it back is no longer just a driving problem. It becomes a full recovery job involving weight, ground condition, pull angles, and a lot of patience. Out here, getting stuck is never just inconvenient. It can shut down the entire operation. Then a whole tree harvester moves into the stand like a machine built to erase manual labor. It advances through the timber, grabs each stem, cuts it, processes it, and moves on within seconds. Watching it work feels like seeing the forest turned into an assembly line. Fast, precise, and brutally efficient. This is where NextGen Timber really shows its edge. Machines that do not just cut trees, but transform raw forest into processed material with industrial rhythm. Next comes a much more delicate job, removing an oak tree nearly 2 centuries old beside a town hall. That is not ordinary cutting. That is controlled risk management in the middle of a public area. One bad angle, one wrong fall path, or one misread section of wood could damage buildings, vehicles, or anything nearby. Around structures like this, every cut has consequences. The operator is not just thinking about the tree, he is thinking about space, balance, hinge strength, surrounding property, and what happens after the trunk starts moving. The chainsaw comparison follows, with the Steel MS 661 cm going head-to-head against the Steel MS 500i. This is not only about which saw has more power on paper. It is about how each machine bites into the wood, how it holds chain speed, how smoothly it clears the cut, and how much control the operator can feel with every pass through the trunk. In real timber work, numbers matter, but feel matters too. A saw has to deliver power in a way the operator can actually use. Then the KX57 with the frost ripper attachment turns stump removal into something cleaner and more controlled. Instead of fighting the stump piece by piece, the attachment breaks into the root mass with precision. What usually looks like a brutal, messy job starts to look organized. The machine digs, splits, and loosens the stump with controlled force, making the removal process faster and more predictable. Then the Bobcat T190 mounted log splitting system changes heavy labor into a nearly continuous process. Instead of workers fighting every piece by hand, the machine keeps feeding, splitting, and processing wood with a steady rhythm. It turns a slow, exhausting job into controlled production. That is the real advantage of modern forestry equipment, not just power, but repeatable power that keeps the workflow moving. Tree work is not only about force, it is about control, timing, judgment, and knowing what the trunk will do after the cut opens. A single decision can decide whether the job looks professional or turns into chaos. That is the part many viewers miss. The cut itself may look simple, but the real skill is predicting what happens next. Then comes a classic mistake, focusing only on the cutting line and forgetting where the piece will move once it separates. In timber work, the cut is only half the problem. The real danger often begins after the wood breaks free. A branch, log, or trunk section can swing, roll, kick back, or drop in a direction nobody expected. That is why experienced crews think beyond the blade. In real timber work, short calls matter. They may sound casual, but they keep everyone aware before the tree finally moves. A few words at the right time can prevent someone from standing in the wrong place. That is the truth about tree felling. It is not only about making the tree fall, it is about making it fall where it should, when it should, and without turning the worksite into a disaster zone. There is always that tense second where the plan either works perfectly or exposes every mistake made before the cut. Then the timber trucks return, and they are not just carrying wood. They are carrying massive inertia. Dozens of tons moving through narrow roads, slopes, and rough terrain leave almost no room for error. When that weight starts shifting, stopping it is never easy. The driver has to manage momentum long before the danger becomes visible. Then the Vermeer WC230XL takes over, and entire giant trunks become wood chips in no time. The machine pulls in heavy material and reduces it with shocking speed. This is not light-duty chipping. This is raw industrial forestry power, turning massive wood into usable material almost instantly. It is loud, aggressive, efficient, and exactly the kind of machine that makes modern timber processing look almost unreal. The trailer unload is one of those moments that never gets old. When the full load of timber drops at once, the vibration, weight, and sudden release make the whole scene feel powerful. You can watch it many times and still feel the impact. It is simple, but it shows the scale of the work better than any explanation. Then the scene shifts into unloading, where heavy material comes off and the crew reacts in real time. Even simple unloading can become risky when the weight is uneven or the ground does not cooperate. Timber does not always fall neatly. Loads can shift, roll, or release faster than expected, and everyone nearby has to stay alert. From the first sound of that engine to the moment the gray birch finally starts falling, the whole scene carries raw professional energy. The steel MS 661 bites into the large trunk with smooth, steady power, and the operator keeps the entire cut under control like he has done this 1,000 times before. It does not feel rushed. It feels calculated, powerful, and almost like a performance built from fuel, steel, and experience. When gusts reach extreme levels, it is not just trees that suffer. Vehicles, branches, trunks, and anything standing in the open can become victims of that force. Wind does not need a chainsaw to bring timber down. Finally, the WG-24 digs deep into a stubborn stump and shows exactly how much raw force this machine can deliver. Wood blocks that look impossible to handle are quickly ground down into mulch. The stump disappears piece by piece, and the ground slowly becomes workable again. That is the purpose of machines like this, turning stubborn buried timber into manageable material with direct mechanical force. That is NextGen Timber. Powerful chainsaws, massive gray birch, dangerous wind, old oak removals, trapped saw blades, whole tree harvesters, timber trucks, stump grinders, log splitters, wood chippers, and machines built to turn raw forest work into pure mechanical force. Subscribe now for more extreme logging action, heavy forestry equipment, dangerous tree work, and real timber operations from the hardest jobs in the woods.